Welcome to Hannah's Heart.
So Hannah, she's just one of the women who did struggle with infertility in the Bible.
No matter who we are, we can be inspired by the fact that Hannah took her pain to God, and God heard her and was with her.
So when she was praying at the temple, she had been weeping and not eating, and her lips were moving, but her eyes were closed, and the priest was like, "Hey, why are you drunk at the temple?"
It can become an obsession when you want a child so deeply.
And desiring that baby and to be a mama. Every holiday, every Mother's Day.
This is not a show that's going to promise you a certain outcome, but this is a show that says, however God answers your cry, we know that He's enough. Hi, this is Kendra.
And I'm Ann.
And you are listening to Hannah's Heart on American Family Radio. We're glad to have you here.
We are. My brain was spacing, Kendra.
We have it. I'm glad you remembered your name, though. You're good. And I'm recovering from a cold, so I sound like a chain smoker over here.
Oh, my word. My brain was gone. I was trying to look up a Bible verse that came to my mind all of a sudden, and I was like, Ann. My name is Ann.
You're here. You got it.
Oh, my goodness. Yeah, I'm here without my work tag, but I'm here.
Well, for those of you that are just joining us, this is a show all about couples struggling with infertility or considering adoption, fostering. However God is building your family, we want to be here to encourage you along the way.
Right. I think today's show might surprise people of what we're talking about.
Yes.
Because most of our shows are about infertility, miscarriage.
Yeah, couples who are already married.
Yes, and that is definitely why this ministry started. But I feel like over the last year, we've kind of shared all kinds of stories. You know, whether that's adoption, losing a child. Yeah, multiple of our shows have had to be 2 and 3, 4 shows because one family can experience so many different types of things.
Yeah.
So,
but we have not had anybody who dealt with desiring to have a child but was not yet married. And that hits a lot of faithful people, a lot of faithful Christians who are waiting for God to bring that spouse into their life, and they have a desire for family.
Right.
Maybe they have a desire for even ministry of pouring into another human being, and they don't know what to do with that.
Right.
Well, that segues perfectly into today's guest. I would like to introduce you guys to a dear friend of mine, Caitlin, who background story. All right, so we knew each other from a traveling ministry that did tumbling and used that to spread the gospel in college, we were roommates on tour one year, and I remember being in a room with Caitlin at night, and you know how girls talk about boys and it just comes up and stuff. Anyways, we were just openly sharing our hearts, and I remember Caitlin telling me, I'm committed to wait for the Lord's timing on who He brings into my life, no matter how long. And I don't remember the exact words that she said, but she said, I want to go on an adventure with God and serve Him in life and ministry, and that's more important to me. Even though I do desire a husband, I want to do it God's way.
Wow.
And Caitlin, I don't know if you even remember that conversation, but I don't think you know how much of a lasting impact it had on my life and encouraging me to be faithful and to wait on God's timing. So do you remember that conversation by chance? It's okay if you don't.
Hello. Yeah, no, that is so sweet. I do not remember that at all.
Isn't that the thing? Sometimes we have huge, meaningful moments and we don't even know what impact we're having.
So
that
in
just
people's
means
lives.
it wasn't us. That
Exactly.
means that was
that's
probably
true.
just true Holy Spirit, speaking from my heart to yours. And I trust it was the truth. It does sound accurately like me in my early late 20s.
Well, I have watched you, Caitlin, over the last several years. You have literally been a mama to the world. God has taken you on this crazy adventure, literally all over the world. I'm going to let you tell our listeners where all you've been and how God kind of brought your heart into missions and fulfilled your heart's desire to pour into young people. But first, let's back up. Let's go to young Caitlin. What did you picture when you were a little girl? Did you think, I'm going to be married and have 2.3 kids? Or was that not something you even desired?
No, it probably was. Probably before I got into just a life with Jesus and all that he had to offer, I probably just assumed, like, yes, my life has to look like everybody else's. I knew at like a really young age, like elementary, I thought I was going to have all these boyfriends. And I just thought that that's what girls did. And that's how we got validated. And so I probably thought I was going to have a really predictable life. Most kids just expect the only thing that they see is their parents. So they think life is going to be like my parents. And I'm just really glad the Lord loved me and my family enough not to keep me in that expectation of what the world wants. That was like probably my family expectations. But then as a kid growing up, I just shot for the moon. I wanted to go to the Olympics. As an athlete, I wanted to move to Africa and live with the gorillas. Like, I was not thinking small.
I love it.
Yeah. Once the Lord got a hold of me, he still just like dreamed big and sent me all over the world as my heart changed.
And you did make it to Africa.
Just like his desires. I did. And I did make it to the Olympics last year to help out with broadcasting. So it's just fun how the Lord does hear your dreams. So, but yeah, he did bring me back to Africa and heard that heart's cry.
Well, let's talk about God calling you into missions. When did you feel that call in your life?
So I found the Lord around middle school is when my family kind of came to know Jesus. And long story short, I was a pretty religious kid, and the Lord's freed me a lot of that. And I just love the relationship with Jesus now, but I was not a bright kid. So I went to a youth conference one summer, and it's the kind that's like a week long, and you go to like little seminars, and then you have worship at night. Really, really great. But I was not paying attention. And so the class I went to was called A Mission for Your Life. And I thought they were going to tell me the mission for my life. I was like, cool, this is it.
I'm coming out of here with a plan.
Yes. I didn't know what I was doing as a high schooler. But no, it was just a really sweet teaching about what a mission trip is. And that was 2001. And then I can't even believe my parents did this, but like then 9/11 happens, right? And changes the world. But the next summer I went on my first mission trip to England, and I have been traveling ever since.
Wow.
So that's that's when I like that same conference in summer. I gave my little high school heart, my whole self to Christian ministry. I didn't know what that meant at the time, but I knew I needed to serve God in some big way.
Well, give us the flyby overview of some of the main places you've gone and ministry type things that you've done.
Sure. So that was high school, and sometime in college, I think like some really good friends introduced me into youth ministry. And that's when, I just fell in love with youth ministry. And, we'll probably talk about this more, but like, that's where my heart grew for young kids. And so after college, I was able to go on the World Race, which is a short-term mission program for young adults. And it's developed so much since I went in one of their premier trips. But that took me to Southeast Asia, Africa, Eastern Europe, Central America. That, and along with other like trainings and other organizations. I've been around, but
you have been around.
I've been around, been around the world, seen people from all over the world, seen kids in every, so many lights.
So when are you writing a book?
Right. I feel like I need more life experience.
Oh my goodness.
With these interview prep questions, I feel like, oh wait, no, God has done stuff.
Yes,
yes.
Every time I look at your Facebook. People. Oh, you go ahead.
Yeah, it says something different, right?
Yeah, well, you have a picture of like kids surrounding you and young people. And I just see their hearts and their eyes glowing, and the love that I know that they've felt from you.
Good. Yeah. But long story short, with all my travels, I landed back in Africa. So I'm living in West Africa right now. And it's sweet to joke with people that like I loved Africa before I loved Jesus. And so it just reiterates like the depth of your soul, like what we long for. The Lord knows that. And so he brings it back.
Well, let's jump into what does your desire for a spouse look like through the last 20 years of all of these travels?
Yeah. So being in some kind of area of ministry, the female to male count is not equal. So in the early 20s, late 20s, early 30s, you're traveling around and you're doing ministry with families. And if it's not family, it's a single woman. Very rarely do you just like see a single male. And so that already just makes it challenging because you don't have that option.
Come on, fellas. You got to answer the call here. God calls us both.
He does. So you just have to, I don't know. It's just hard to respond to that. Like, just in that environment, like you have the desire, but like, it's like,
no opportunity.
Yeah, no opportunity. Bad comparison, but it's like being in Asia and wanting cheese. You don't have a lot of cheese, you know, you have to go to France to get the really good cheese. So it just wasn't there. And so I was content. But my first hurdle was like early 20s because every single member in my family got married at 23. And I think I put that expectation on me that I was like, oh gosh, like I had mentioned as a kid, I just thought I had to do life like my parents did and like my brother did. And 23 came and went very quickly. And I was still in a season of growing and maturing. And so I didn't have relationships, but I had, you know, those girly crushes and the fantasies and the infatuations, and nothing was reciprocated. And so I just thought for a few years, I just thought I was like broken. Like nothing's happening. But in the meantime, like the Lord would give me these amazing like assignments to travel and to love the world. And so, I think what got me through, at least in my 20s, was just focusing on the work that the Lord had for me to do, as well as just my relationship with him and like what he was doing within my heart. I got so much like good, deep soul healing in my 20s that let me know I was loved and I was blessed just as I was. That the concern for a husband like kind of faded as I was just more concerned with like, Lord, how can I please you? How can I love you?
Which I feel like is right where the Lord wants us to get, you know.
We use the scripture a lot on this show about, you know, if you delight yourself in the Lord, then he'll give you the desires of your heart, and how that's often wrongly interpreted to mean you just get anything you want. But I really think the Lord places his desires in your heart the closer that you get to him. He puts, you know, like he gave you a heart for the world, a heart for people, that not that the desire for a hunger for a husband ever left, but that ache became less achy as you were fulfilled.
Right.
Did you find it fulfilling? Your time.
Did I find it fulfilling?
Yeah, your ministry time with people.
Oh, the ministry.
Yeah.
Oh, absolutely. Absolutely. I discovered I was a people person because I grew up with a lot of fear. I was such a shy kid. Like even in college when I knew you, I was just shy. And so after a lot of freedom and healing from the Lord, I discovered I loved people. And so that's what made my ministry and like traveling. So, cause you just jump into different cultures, different languages. Like I loved experiencing like who people were. Kids all over the world are exactly the same. They're fun. They're rambunctious. They do cartwheels everywhere. So like, you know, the tumbler in us was like, woo, I can have fun with you. And yeah, the Lord was just showing me like how to love others. And that was a huge growth point that I had to do as a single person as well. Like I loved God, but I didn't love people. And I had to learn how to do that appropriately. And in the light of Jesus, like I think before he would ever want to share me with like a spouse, you know?
So with all of that traveling, you have new relationships formed, but probably not a lot of deep, long-term relationships. Is that right? Or were you staying in some places longer?
It was like short term all over the place until like the last 4 years when I've been based in West Africa. And that's a really good question. I think like as the Lord warmed my heart to love people well, how he designed me is I just, knowing people come and go, like just in different seasons. And because that's just like the life of somebody in ministry, when the Lord says go, you have to be obedient. So people come and go. I think for me, he just prepared my heart and made me super content with like, Caitlin, you cast a wide net, and whoever's supposed to be in your life, they'll be in your life. And if not, then I get to wish them peace and blessings, and they were just for a season, and that's made me really content. Even in the last 4 years, like I worked at a school, and it's very transient, like workers coming in and out. But like one of the best girlfriends was my first roommate, and we're still super close, and we still talk. But then other roommates of mine, not so much. And then like being content with like, you love exactly who is in front of you, and the Lord gets to do the rest. Like he gets to determine like, yes, this person stays in your life. Whereas like, no, the 20 people that, left our school last year, they don't like, and that they were just for a season. So appreciating the people.
I had a long season of singleness as well, and I would see the beautiful way that God would weave people in and out of my life exactly when I need them. Like there was this tapestry being made, and it's great because God said that it's not good for a man to be alone. But even if God calls a person to forever singleness or temporary singleness, He's designed us to live in community, and
100%.
He has a way for to fulfill that need. Caitlin, what would you say to anybody who might be listening to this broadcast? Let's say there's a single young lady who really desires to be a wife and a mom. That is a burning desire in her heart. She wants to pour into children and just to give of herself, but God has not brought a person along. What kind of encouragement might you give to someone like that?
Yeah, no, that definitely hits. It hits so close at home. It hurts me because even the last 4 years, even the last year, as I was being pursued by my husband and getting married, you could just see the pain on single women's faces. So the first thing I want to tell these lovely, lovely ladies is that you are so supremely loved. Absolutely loved. Like you are not broken. You are not wrong. There is nothing damaged about you, whatever your past may look like. The Lord loves you, and you are just in His season right now. Whatever that might look like, please be patient in the wait and let the Lord work in your heart, because He is just delighting in His private time with you, and He doesn't want to share you yet. And that verse like that you guys share, like it's not cliche. The Lord knows the desire of your heart, and when we sit with Him and come to that moment of peace and contentment, like He gets to make whatever we want come to pass, like on His timing and on His terms. And when that happens, it becomes so much more of a blessing. Like it's nothing that we've earned. It's just like His love and His grace. That I think He lets us enjoy those presents and those gifts more. So just single ladies, you are loved. Please be patient and just keep praying to Daddy God, even with tears. Like He hears you. You are not forgotten.
What about the lady that says, but right now I have this desire to pour into children. What am I supposed to do with this?
Oh my goodness. There is no lack of children on this world. If you can't find a child to love, give me a call, because they are all
because we can find you some. Wow.
Yeah.
Wow.
In the States, there's organizations, there's after school programs, there's coaching, there's some gift in you that you can share with kiddos. And don't let your love be selfish, saying that, no, I can't get a kid now, or no, I can't do anything with kids until like I get a spouse, or like it's just absolutely false. There's like something innate in us, how God made women, that we are just maternal and we are made to love others. As I was thinking about this question, even So my dad has two older sisters. Neither one of them have kids, and they joke that they have no maternal bone in their body. But one aunt is such a gracious host, and she takes people in all the time. And the other one cares for pets, like anybody's animal. She is right there taking care of those animals. So there's just something in us that needs to love others, and so I get that. And if that is not your own child yet, like from birth or adoption, like there's still so many kids to be loved, even older kids. My preference and my special heart goes towards high schoolers, and they are crazy, and they have hormones, and they are ridiculous, but they don't know. They don't know fully yet how they are loved. So what's wrong with one more adult speaking life into them and loving them as they need it. And that's the community. That's the body that, someday later they'll bless others with, because we're pouring into that next generation.
And it takes a selfless heart to pour into somebody who is not going to write you a Mother's Day card, but to treat them as if they, are your family. That's the love of Christ to do that.
I have a friend right now. She's single. I think she just turned 40, and she's a foster mom. And so, I mean, foster parenting's hard with a husband and wife, but by yourself. But she, she had that feeling in her heart was to do that. She's actually a children's counselor as well.
That's great.
But that's how
she just responded.
Yeah, that's how she's loving on babies before she has any of her own.
There's so many creative ways that God can fulfill that desire in your heart. I remember when I was single, there were some, I was involved in a ministry of young girls, middle school to high school, that came from some really broken homes. And I had them over in my house one day, and I was teaching them to make pizza. And I mean, this is like the, add, like it's a mix, like, really easy. But they had never done anything in a kitchen. And so I had little stations that they were doing.
That's fun.
And we were all cooking, and I let them wear aprons. And I overheard one of them, they said, what if like Miss Kendra was like our mom and we were all like her daughters?
Oh.
And my heart just exploded, because the Lord spoke to me in that moment, and he said, don't think that I'm wasting your maternal desire to pour into people. These kids, like if you were, married in this season, your interest would be divided. You'd have to be taking care of your family. You wouldn't be available to the kingdom to be used in this way in this moment.
Yeah.
And I'm so grateful for the time of singleness that the Lord gave me. But enough of that. I want to launch into the next part of your story, Caitlin, because I have not even heard it. I know there is a man that you are married to, but I do not know the details. So please tell us.
Yeah. So just to put it in numbers, so I am 37 now. So yeah, way past the 23 years old that I expected. But I have been living and working in West Africa. I'm going on 5 years now. So 4 years ago, I moved here to take up a position as a media arts teacher at an international school. And right before that, I was trying the online dating thing. Like, it was a moment when I was like, I was content, but I was like,
how does the Lord want to bring this person? Yeah.
Right? Yeah. How does the Lord want to? So I tried online dating in the States for a few months before I moved to Africa, and all weird. Did not work. I never had peace about it, but I tried it. And so I was like, I tried, Lord, that's fine. But what was funny, and I bring that up, is because as soon as I moved to West Africa, I had been around the world, but the only culture shock I was getting at that moment was like, oh, I cannot date like an American anymore. We didn't have single guys working at our school. Like, everybody else spoke a different language. So I was like, wow. So like, really, I can't do this anymore. And that first year I taught at the school, I was content. That's when I met my super good friend, my roommate. And so we were all like single girls, and I was content. But it still just was in my mind. I was like, how old was I at that moment? Like 33, 34. And at the end of that first school year, HR came to me and they were like, hey, do you want to sign on for another like 3-year contract? And no joke, my only first thought was like, I'll be how old when I leave here, and I'll still be single? Like, super like convinced that like if I stay in this environment, and that was just me thinking on worldly terms. I had no idea what God would do, and it gets really good. But that first year, I was just like, if I stay here, I'm going to be single for a long time. But I signed on because I loved the kids, and I just had to be obedient. Like I had to spend those 4 years teaching high schoolers and middle schoolers, just because my love had to be, poured out in that way. But so assuming I would still be single, turns out I worked with my husband. He was the PE teacher. Helping in elementary. But because I was working with the big kids, my whole first year, we didn't talk at all. So after 2 years, then he finally asked me out. Long story short, we got married 4 months ago.
Tell us his name real quick.
His name is Enza, and I love him very much.
And you guys are so in love in all of your pictures. I wish we had longer to hear the Hallmark story of your romance, because
that's okay.
God's ways of writing our story are so beautiful. And Caitlin, your story is still being written. What an encouragement.
It is.
What an encouragement.
No kids yet, but we are just waiting on the Lord's timing.
Amen. Well, we at Hannah's Heart will be praying to that end for your family.
Caitlin, it was nice to meet you.
Well,
nice to meet you, ladies.
Thank you so much. And thank you guys for listening to Hannah's Heart on American Family Radio. Keep connecting with us for more, and we'll see you next week.